Hello, sports fans. Jim Coyle with Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Thank you for stopping by our YouTube channel. Make sure to hit the subscribe and notifications toggle so you never miss a thing. All of our content up here every day. Looking forward to it. Thank you, and we'll see you on the radio. Welcome back to the Hard Truth Distilling Company studios on this Wednesday. Joined now by Rick Bozich from WDRB.com. We did get to hear from Ryan Day yesterday, and coaches are funny. Sometimes and there's no one that says up there that Kurt Cignetti about sometimes sliding something in. You're like, is that a dig? Is that not a dig? I think with UCLA, he talked about the pretty boys or something before he went out there. And there's been a few others, but someone asked Ryan Day yesterday what he is what jumps off the page, and the question may be on here, I can't remember, but what jumps off the page to him with this team that was 3-9 last year, and how they are this year, and then the second question comes, and I'm like, dude, you're confusing Kurt Cignetti with Howard Schnellenberger.
Tom Tiberi, WBNS.
Coach, I don't know how many of us would have predicted a top 5 matchup with Indiana being 10-0. When you look at them, and this is a team that was 3-9 a year ago, what jumps out as you look at this football team?
Yeah, I think the first thing is that I don't think their players get enough credit. I think that coaches have done a great job, and they've done a nice job this year. But the players are the ones who play, and they have good players, and they've done a nice job of changing their roster or upgrading their roster in certain areas. I think they play very hard. They are well coached. They take care of the football. They cause turnovers. They play well in special teams, and their best players play on special teams. Like, for instance, their top running back is back there as a protector in the punt, and which does a lot of things. Like it shows that special teams are important to them, but it also makes you be aware that, hey, there's a running back there when you're punting. So I think there's a lot of things they've done, but you can see that they've been very successful in everything they've been looking to do in terms of installing a culture, in all 3 phases, and so. It's going to be a great challenge for our team. We're looking forward to it.
Their coach is very confident. He has said some things, collision course with greatness and all this, said some things. Do you pay any attention to any of that stuff that's been said?
Well, everybody has to motivate their team, and certainly when you feel like you have good players, then it certainly gives you confidence, and I think he's done a great job of instilling that. But ultimately, this is always about us. In our preparation, every week we try to keep the same routine and focus on us. Now, you got to know your opponent. It's very, very important to know their tendencies and what they do. But in order to be consistent week in and week out, you got to keep the same routine. And that's about our routine. That's about our focus and what we need to do and all the different, core values that we believe in terms of winning games. And that'll be the same this week.
2 things there. I don't know if that was an intended or if he was just being complimentary to the players. But first, when I heard that, I'm like, oh, is Cignetti getting too much attention as opposed to the players? And he is getting a lot of attention, but who else are they going to shine the light on? But anyway, the second one cracked me up. So I'm like, he said a lot of things. He is a quote machine, but he has never, I do not recall him mentioning being on a collision course with anything. That guy sounded old enough that he was around when I was there covering Howard Schnellenberger when Louisville is on a collision course with a national championship. The only variable is time. One of the great all-time quotes, but it's wasn't a lot about the game in that presser.
No, not in those 2 questions. I think that Day is just trying to be a good politician and spread the credit to different players in the team, and not going to give Indiana anything at all for a locker room item. And you're right. The second part, I've never heard Kurt Cignetti say they were on a collision course with anything. He said plenty of things even from before he even got to Bloomington when he stopped off in Lucas Oil Stadium for that first interview with the Big Ten Network. He's been consistent in his messaging all the way through. And, as I think we've talked about on here for a long, long time, that's what Indiana needed. That's what Indiana had to have. When you had a program that had underachieved for as many years as Indiana has, you have to have somebody in there who comes in and shocks the system and does things differently and messages differently and gets not only players believing differently, but administrators at the school and the fan base thinking differently. And he's done that, and he's done an incredible job of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And now he gets a chance to really step up, because this weekend is going to be, well, not only it's the biggest football game in the history of the IU football program. I think it's bigger than anything that happened in '67. Then that was the biggest, but this takes it to another level, because if they win this game, first of all, the enormity of the game itself, a top 5 matchup on the road, it will put you in essence into the Big Ten championship game, which is gigantic. But not only that, it locks you into, in my opinion, at worst, hosting a college football playoff game. Because if you're go in, and they'll be number 2 if they were to beat Ohio State. If you lose to Oregon, you're not going anywhere. You'll drop out of the top 4, but you're going to be in that 5 to 8 category still. And it's just the enormity is there. And it's going, plus Ohio State has just lost another offensive lineman. So there's a lot of things going into this game.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's the biggest football game in IU history. And I do go back to '67, and I mean, you can't even compare the eras. Back then, maybe 3 IU football games were on TV. I don't think I lived in the Chicago area. I think I might have seen one. The game that they beat Purdue to win the Big Ten title, I listened to on the radio. It wasn't on TV. So this is on national TV with Fox doing their pregame show from there, with ESPN doing their pregame show from there. It's all, national people are lining up on both sides of the equation to give their thoughts on IU football and how deserving they are to be in this moment. Story after story is being written about Kurt Signetti. He just got an 8-year, $72 million contract. You can go on and on. It's by far the biggest moment in IU football history, and the world of college football will be watching. Some of the games early in the year when game day was there, was at Washington, I think it was, or the big game against Nebraska, which might have been when, I don't remember now, where Fox Sports was there. But they were big games too, but the only people who were watching might have been, Big Ten fans or, regional fans. This is a game that people around the country will be paying attention to, because they want to see if Indiana, and they'll form their opinion on whether they think Indiana's worthy of being in the playoff on what happens in this game.
Yeah, you've got Fox Big Noon Kickoff there, ESPN's College Game Day there. Right. I mean, the college football world.
We're going to be there. I mean, don't forget us.
Oh, for WDRB's. Do you know the
you too. Aren't you going to be there?
Oh, heck yeah, absolutely, man.
Yeah, that's what I mean. We're going to be
post game show from there, from the Horseshoe. The first game I ever saw at the Shoe was a Louisville Ohio State game.
I was there for that game.
I was at WOKY back then, the CBS station in Louisville, as Potts.
Is that the game when Louisville went for a 2-point conversion to win and didn't get it?
Yeah. Yep. Howard Schellenberger starting it.
You know who the quarterbacks were in that game, right?
No.
Jeff Brom for Louisville, Kirk Herbstreit for Ohio State.
I thought Herbstreit was a running back. Wow.
No, he was the quarterback.
That is amazing. Wow. They used to have a track around the football field.
Yeah, they did.
I worked a USFL game once there, and had to be there in the morning, and there was nobody there but me. I ran around that track, like ran a mile or something that's no longer there. So I'm like going, yep, I can say I did something a lot of other people didn't do. But yeah, this is going to be a huge game. What did Mr. Ohio State ESPN's, I forget his name.
Joey Galloway, the wide receiver.
What Mr. Joey Galloway have to say?
Well, he had an insight that really nobody else has shared, but he was willing to share it. He suggested that Indiana sit Curtis Rourke for the Ohio State game and not risk him for the injury the way Florida State played Jordan Travis last year, and he got hurt and it ruined their season. Sit him against Ohio State, take the loss, and then beat Purdue, and you'll still get in the playoffs. Say that his thumb isn't really ready to go yet, and not play him in the game.
Well, just to even suggest something so I don't even know the word to use there. First of all, if they get beat by 3 touchdowns, not sure that they go to the CFP. I mean, there's going to be a lot of noise if that were to happen, if they got beat down. But if they got beat down without Curtis Rourke, I don't know, but that's dumb. That is just takes all the sport out of sporting event.
You know, what's strange is I think Joey Galloway went to Ohio State.
No, he did. He's Mr. Ohio State.
Oh, I know.
Yeah. But who didn't? Of course, you got, yeah.
Now, I don't think he made the same comment about Will Howard. Why wouldn't that apply to Ohio State too? Why wouldn't they sit? I guess that they've already got one loss, so they can't afford another one. But
true that. And I wonder, I had a premonition. I'm like, oh, wow, what if Will Howard gets knocked out of the game early?
Yeah.
I don't know who their backup quarterback is, but
I'm sure it's another 5-star, so I'm not worried about him.
Of course.
You know, I would imagine Oregon. I mean, they're already in the Big Ten championship game. They need to sit Dillon Gabriel.
Absolutely. He's got to sit out. You know, forget about Heisman Trophy and all of that stuff.
And what's funny is Mike Schumann pointed it out on Twitter that Joey Galloway made that statement like 20 minutes or half an hour after Curtis Rourke was made available for IU to represent the team in the press conference for the game. So he's not sitting out.
No, not. Indiana is going to Columbus with one goal, one mission, and that is to put all of these naysayers talk away because they're tired of hearing it. I guarantee you, anybody can talk about all the bulletin board material from Kurt Cignetti they want. Doesn't matter. Indiana will go in there with the biggest chip on their shoulder yet because nobody thinks that they can win this game. Nobody. Vegas has them as a 12.5-point underdog. Nobody thinks that Indiana can win it, will win it. I'm not one of those people, but that's what's going to make this game so intriguing, especially if it is a close game.
You know, this is the way I look at it. I mean, Indiana is the team right now taking all the barbs, but I think you could name a bunch of teams if they were in a similar position, Minnesota or Kansas or West Virginia or, you know, SMU, whoever. If they were in a similar position, they'd be taking similar barbs. College football, at its essence, is a snobby club. And there's about 10 or 15 programs that think that they rule the sport. And when they're good, they deserve to be in the playoff. And anybody else who's sort of an outsider, when they try and get inside the club, they're denigrated and they're doubted and they're questioned and they're criticized. And they've got to overachieve to make it to where everybody else is. And that's what we're seeing right now. And we're seeing a lot of people, in my opinion, who probably never watched Indiana play, certainly until the last couple of games. They saw the Michigan game and maybe only the second half of the Michigan game and said, I'm not impressed by that. Instead of actually going back and looking at the Washington game or looking at the Nebraska game or looking at the UCLA game. You know, those great teams know, but they're formidable teams that have a number of decent wins, and Indiana dominated those teams. And so it's really it's snobbery, and it's people talking about a team that they really haven't watched play and taking the time to look at how they played all year. That's what I think.
Yeah, of course it is, because no one paid any attention to them for the first half of the season hardly, and then all of a sudden it kept going and kept going and kept going, and then they haven't played anybody because it's Indiana. Well, Penn State hasn't either, and now finally there's some conversation. Booger McFarland, of all people, Mr. SEC, has been pro Indiana all year long, and he brought up the the Penn State thing. He goes, if you want to compare them two, he goes, let's compare head to head. They both played UCLA. Penn State struggled. Indiana beat the heck out of them in the beginning of the year even. So I do think Indiana's better than Penn State. I don't know where they are with Ohio State, and we'll find out on Saturday. That's the great thing.
Well, I mean, if you're just being logical that Ohio State is probably better, they should be better, and they should be favored. They're playing at home. All the recruiting or talent measuring people, whether it was high school star system, transfer portal star system, NFL draft possibilities, all the way down the line will tell you Ohio State has better players, right? They've got a former NFL coach as their offensive coordinator. Indiana has a guy who came from James Madison, Mike Shanahan versus Chip Kelly. There's a mismatch. Ohio State has a NIL payroll of over 20 million. They're going to have 90-some thousand people in a home game. They should be favored, right? I mean, they've got every advantage in the world.
Yep, and they are. Quickly, how about Tommy Tuberville? He just an absolute moron. I don't do politics. I said that earlier, and I'm like, I don't care what side of the aisle you're on. I said there are idiots and morons in both, and how they get to these positions, I don't know, because of all people that should be the most educated on things like this, this idiot doesn't know jack squat about what he's talking about. And of all people, a guy that was at Auburn is going to talk about anything. Just stop talking right there. And now I do agree with it would be great to get athletes to be able to sign multi-year deals, because I hate the other thing, or the being able to just go wherever you will. But he used Indiana as the example of having gone out and bought themselves a football team. And it's like, yeah, they bought all of those guys from Old Dominion and James Madison and
Ohio University,
and the second tier running back from Wake Forest. And this is the guy that got up from a dinner table with a recruit and left to take a phone call and never came back because he took another job and left to break a contract.
Well, I mean, I know one player they didn't buy about 10 or 15 years ago was Cam Newton, who brought Auburn a national championship when buying players wasn't allowed. So I'll start off by saying that. And secondly, all these guys that were out there were available for anybody to recruit. And I'm sure Auburn has bought whatever team they had. They just didn't do a very good job of figuring out who they were buying.
Absolutely. What's up next for you, brother?
Just watching sports the next couple nights and heading to Columbus. I'll be there this weekend. I haven't been there, just like you, since the Brom Herb Street game. I'm dreading the traffic, but I'm looking forward to the game.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it as well. It should be
Are you going Friday night, or are you just going all day on Saturday?
I am actually going up Friday night this time. Just
all the way to Columbus?
Just to try to beat that and be there and start getting stuff ready, because it's going to be it's a noon game. So right. And you've got all that stuff that's going on. You're going to have to deal with college game day and big noon kickoff, and I'm not going to be messing with that. There's too much, but right. It's just going to be a gigantic day. And Ohio State people are still complaining about the noon game part of it. That's like one of their biggest issues.
Again, that's the snobbery. The teams that are really good thinks that they're the only ones that should be good, and that they should decide when their game should be played. Their worthiness is ranked above all others.
Yep, and looking forward to it, brother. I appreciate you as always, and I look forward to seeing you in Columbus.
See you there, Jim.
Hello, sports fans. Jim Coyle with Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Thank you for stopping by our YouTube channel. Make sure to hit the subscribe and notifications toggle so you never miss a thing. All of our content up here every day. Looking forward to it. Thank you, and we'll see you on the radio.